Greetings, Summoners. Cosmic here, and welcome back to another Battle Spirit Saga video. Today, we're going to be reviewing the Evangelion starter coming to the game in June, and I am so excited to dig into this set. One, I think it's just the best starter deck they've done yet, which I'll talk about very shortly, but also it's just a great opportunity to bring new players into the game, and I also love Evangelion, so this is like a home run for me. So up first, you'll just notice right away these gorgeous full art promos, and these are in a promo pack that's included in every starter deck purchase, so there will be one of 6 cards in that pack, just like they've done recently for Fusion World, and I know they did this also for One Piece with the 3 captains, so hopefully this is a trend of things to come kind of going forward. They continue this, but we only have these 2. We don't know what the other 4 look like. It is going to be one of 6, but that said, these are definitely going to be considered the hits that you can get out of the promo packs, and for that reason, I think this is a very awesome thing that they did, because I know that collectors are going to want to finish these sets, because, well, they're both very good cards, and some that will get supported very, very well in set 1, which we'll talk about at the very end. But with that said, let's just get into the cards themselves. Now, the other thing I really got to mention is that I do have to give credit to the vanillas in this set. While normally it's a detractor from the starter decks because it's just, monocolor, and yes, the reductions do play a theme there. With a 3-color deck, you now really get to use this as an introductory tool to really help players get into, okay, what do each of these symbols mean? You'll notice that they have like the 3 different color reductions here, and also on the 4-drop, that can really help as people are playing the game, learn about sequencing, the value in getting out certain reductions versus other on certain tools, so on turns. So in this case, I do think it's a great introduction to this set in particular because of the 3 colors and just how well they play off one another in general. Now that said, from an overall standpoint, they do also have a T field, so it's not just learning about the color reductions and the payoffs that it's going to have, but then also explaining a keyword and kind of putting the value on the soul core, which, as we know in main set Battle Spirits, not every color cares about the soul core in the same way. But this now gives a very direct effect that says, oh, the soul core is important. This is a key part of the game, which of course, as you're demoing, you'll definitely explain as well. But it's also nice to just see this written on the card so bluntly. So yes, 3 of the 16 cards are going to be vanillas, but at least it's not just all of the same color. This does lend itself very well to playing out the game and how these reductions are going to play off one another. So obviously it's on theme because it's Eva and they're all going to have their own different colors, but overall, I think this is just another great thing they've done for this set in particular, that if we do get like another double color set with set 5, if we get a starter deck, or I should say right after set 5, we get another double color starter deck or triple color, hopefully they do see this theme again as another way to, again, onboard new players, because this is one of the more difficult parts about learning the game and learning the reduction system, similar to some of the complaints that we've seen already around, or challenges, I should say, around Union Arena, with how their energy system works very similar to Battle Spirit Saga reduction system. So something to keep in mind. I am, again, a huge fan of this from the starter deck perspective because I think it's going to be a great tool for onboarding some players. Now, moving on from there, we're going to get into the biggest spoilers, kind of just right up front. And I want to continue that theme of, okay, this entire deck is really focused around yellow-purple. Now, yes, there are some red cards. We'll cover that here a little bit later about where those are really going to fit. But at least at a high level, it's really going to be focused on yellow and purple. If you notice here down the bottom right, I did include a little snapshot of what to expect in BSS 05. And shocker, purple-yellow is one of the color combinations. So now we're also going to be seeing direct kind of support to the EVA 01 archetype happening in BSS 05. Yes, there's going to be things like Astrals, and there's going to be new key spirits that are obviously going to have built-in patterns. But for anything like Nexus or magic effects or just generically good purple or yellow cards, those could very easily find a slot into this style of deck. And then also if there's some like random golem support for purple yellow, that could also find a role here because they do have the golem archetype. Now, the one thing I really did want to stress here that kind of really brings this together and kind of a one pain point that I'm going to stick with, right? We know how important the soul core is in Battle Spirit Saga. We know that you only get one, and your decision tree matters so much as you look at your turns. You're trying to plan towards things like suppression, or you have on-summon effects that want the soul core, whatever it is, right? And then we have the EVA 00, which is kind of like the core staple for this entire deck. Everything feels like it hinges on this one card because it does save place. So this counts for both Spirits and Nexus cards that you're going to want to be playing. So this is the most important card that you could have on the board early game. Get those color reductions happening to streamline your turns. And it doesn't have AT field. Look, I get that some people are going to say right off the bat, but oh, it's too strong that if it had AT field. Look, here's my counterpoint to that. You only get one soul core, so you're only protecting one thing. And if the soul core is on this, shocker, you're not protecting your key spirit. And also, this card can't attack, so you can't like flood the board and swing out them, right? Like, it is just such a critical piece for the starter deck that, one, I'm glad that they included. Like, don't get me wrong, this is a huge thing that they could have just written off, but the fact that they included this specific card gives me a lot of hope in general for like ST07 design and some of like the Nexus cards that we're going to see here later. Like, I think all of this is a beautiful design step forward for Battle Spirit Saga as we go into 2 and 3 color decks. Again, the downside being it doesn't have AT field. Goodness gracious, did it really need AT field? Because again, even in multiples, you can only protect one of them, and it is so important for those reductions. So this is one that I'm going to be very curious to see where this goes going forward, if people decide that it's going to be worth the slot, or if it's just going to be too fragile, and you're just going to do like a heavy purple and splash yellow type of core. We'll see. Love this card. Love everything about it. Hopefully it finds a spot, because the reductions that you get out of this is just insane. Now, moving on from there, we have EVA 01, Operation Yashima, and this is going to be your key spirit for this deck. Once again, we do see the AT field. This is going to be a staple, as you would expect. It's very thematic. It works out quite well, but again, limits itself to just wanting to protect your key spirit. And there is a lot of text down there, but a couple things to highlight is that it does have a when summon that you select a nerve card that costs 4 or fewer, so not Spirit, not Nexus, doesn't matter. It's just whatever has that tag on it that costs 4 or less that you can get back. And at the time of recording this, we haven't seen the full CB01 spoilers yet, but that is a very powerful effect. Now, it does have AT field at 1, 2, and 3, but again, this is something that you're going to want to have at level 3 for its effect. So when the spirit attacks, you may place 5 cores from this spirit into your trash. And again, this is trash, so you do have to burn those cores, right? It's not reserve. It is trash. Select one of your opponent's spirits, remove 4 cores from it, and place it into your opponent's reserve area. When you destroy a spirit with this effect, if you control a Shinji Nexus, remove a core from your opponent's life and put it into their reserve. So we'll get into it at the end, but we did see the EVA 01 from the main set, which is just going to be better. Now, for the combination with EVA 00, that this lines up pretty well, I think from a starter deck, this is a very good like base effect that we can get into. Life Burn is very strong effect. We are going to see a lot more of this in the near future. And again, 4 cores is a lot. Now, the counterpoint is, oh, your opponent can just go down to 1 spirit, load up the cores on it, and you're not going to lose to that effect. But then you can also just go wide instead, right? So it does put a very interesting threat into play that your opponent cannot just destroy with effects thanks to AT field, because even at level 1, it's going to keep it. Now, it does go down to a 4K, which is a little bit of a bummer in terms of an offensive line. But we do have a lot of ways to get value back in the EVA 01 archetype that make it feel maybe not as bad at times. And it does have a 5 reduction built into it, so you are going to be able to play this for pretty cheap, all things considered. So I do like this card. I think the when summon is going to be very important for the EVA 01 deck we'll talk at the very end, as well as the life burn just being really, really important if your opponent is playing like white control, they board it up, and you want to stay on theme. This does help you get that last couple points of damage. And then the other part of this, in terms of the 2-part combo, as it were, was the yellow counterpart, and also the card that we saw in the gorgeous full art on the first one. So again, AT field. During opponent's turn, if it's refreshed, your EVA 01 spirits cannot be selected by your opponent's effect. So during your opponent's turn, because you're now going to have immunity from the AT field as well as EVA 00, you are going to be able to keep this on the board. However, this is the card that you're really going to want for that CB01 EVA 01 card as your main combo finisher. And then the last point here is when destroyed by an opponent, you may select one of your nerve spirits and refresh it. I really don't expect this to be too much of an impact. You're really just playing this for the first 2 cards. And then again, it is the shield for your EVA 01 combo. There are going to be some lines because it is, again, just select one of your nerve spirits. So there's other, anything with a nerve tag is fair game here. So if you want to do like a red yellow, if you could somehow splash that in, there's also consideration there because this does have double yellow reduction. But again, we'll have to wait and see what the rest of CB01 gives us for the nerve effect to be really restanding. Again, you're really doing this just because it is an easy thing to play, 4K for 2, and then it does have protection for what is essentially going to be your key spirit and finisher. Moving on from there, we have some other you know, EVA 01 matters cards that you're probably just having because you need some number of them. So EVA 01 attack, when summon, draw a card if your opponent controls a spirit. So just more card filtering. We have things that care about EVA 01, so absolutely fine. And then the other one, EVA 01 Berserk, which I wish this had more of the orange showing, just as a side note. In purple, this does have good BP thresholds, but ultimately because it attacks every turn, unless you're really leaning into that, I want to push the damage and get that draw off the Nexus. This is one that I'm just not excited about. So I think EVA 01 is definitely cheap enough, stays on theme. It's EVA 01, has a nerve tag, draws you a card, AT field, so you can build up those early reductions. Overall, fantastic card. Going to see play every time. Berserk, I just don't love it. It's great for, again, the starter deck and kind of getting into that mode of, okay, how do BP thresholds, 5 core for 1 and, obviously cost 2 more, but 5 core for 1 versus, 5 for 6. So it plays more to that BP comparison part of starter deck battles that usually happen, and Berserk can just be good for threatening some damage when you really need it to. Moving on from there, we're getting to the rest of the purple out of this starter deck. We do have Shinji as a Nexus as well as a magic card here. So this is where I was talking about, like, when one of your EVA 01 spirits is destroyed, draw a card if you have 5 or fewer cards in your hand. This is going to be extremely important for the CB01 spoiler that we saw, or the other key spirit that you're going to want to be using. So this is one of those things like, yep, I just have to include this. This is such an important card. Obviously, if you have multiple of them, they can stack. It does have full reduction, which is really cool to see. The reduction that they lined up for the EVA 01 archetype in general is really, really strong. The thing is that you'll have to note is that there is a red and a yellow. So I am very curious to see what other red and yellow Nexus that we ultimately get, because while yes, there are some in the starter deck, they are a little bit lacking outside of Shinji, in my opinion. So I'm really curious to see what other kind of good red and yellow reductions we can get. Now, keep in mind that EVA 00 Spirit that we talked about earlier can count towards a red if we need it to, because this is a nerf card. So again, really well-designed starter deck that plays into the reduction systems that I was very happy to see. And then during your attack step, when one of your EVA 01 spirits is blocked, remove a core from your opponent's blocking spirit and place it into their reserve. Now look, I know this and Shinji's decision did not get a lot of love outright, but if you think about it, you're not, with these two cards in general, and Shinji's being able to pop a core and then kill something that has 2 or less on it, Shinji's decision is basically lining up for a 2-for-1 because you have these higher BPs in this particular archetype in purple. Even without curse, if you just knock them down a level from like a 3 to a 2 on block, they are going to lose that BP trade, as well as Shinji's decision, which again has 5 reductions, which is really nice. This allows you to then 2-for-1 your opponent because you're going to de-level their guy. Your guy's going to be bigger, as well as killing something else on their board. Like, because you're going to want to go wide in some situations, your opponent does have to go wide themselves on the board to protect themselves, and you're able to just KO them very efficiently with this and a good attacker. So I love both of these in terms of, again, staying on the EVA 01 archetype. I think these both are going to shine very, very strong once we get the full CB01 spoilers. And again, because of the combo that we know that's coming at the end, just getting to discard the EVA 01s, restand your guy, and draw more of them when they're destroyed is going to be really, really important for keeping your hand filled and crafting your hand so that when you go into that final attack turn, your hand is like, oh, I got all EVA 01s. Let me just discard all these all day and continue to attack. So love both of these. Obviously, with Shinji's decision, it's going to be something that's like a 2 of. It's not something you can really reliably use as a 4 of. But I think Shinji's decision is going to be one of the better magics that we actually end up seeing out of the Evangelion set overall. Now, talking about some of those other Nexus, we of course do have Rei and Asuka for the other 2, giving you that yellow and red reduction. And both these were, again, kind of where do they fit sort of thing. So I do like Rei because, again, it's very cheap, very, very, very cheap. It replaces itself and gives you that very important yellow reduction that we've seen. That is a single pip on many of the cards. So in the terms of a purple-yellow deck, I think this is just going to be fantastic for where it fits, again, because it automatically adds a nerve card back. Now, it does discard them, so that's a little bit of an interesting part, and to not stray too much from the point here, but we also did get the first look at the Unit 13 or Gendo's deck, and Rei seems like it wants to be there instead, because we know that the Gendo deck is also going, I should say Unit 13 is going to also be purple-yellow, and you do actually want the discard as well. And because it's any nerve card, because of some of the cards that are also in that archetype that you're going to want to be playing, like there will be some hits that you care about, and if you don't care about them, then you're happy to mill them anyways, right? Like you are building a deck that is okay to just reveal 3, mill 3, automatically, and you still have your yellow reduction on board. And if you go, oops, I hit the 1 or 2 nerve cards that I also have in here, great, right? So it's like, it's interesting that they put it in here. I get, because it's cheap, it replaces itself. It's very, very good for the starter deck. But as we think for the EVA 01 archetype, you know, yes, it gives you that yellow reduction, which is really great, but I almost want this even more in Unit 13. So I'm very curious to see what the, you know, self-mill deck gets in terms of other Nexus support, because we do have quite a few yellow cards we're probably going to want to be running as well. And then the other part here, during your opponent's attack step, at the start of step, you may select one of your EVA 00 spirits and refresh it. So it's 1 core. It allows you to be aggressive with your weaker yellow spirit if you really want to, but like, the secondary effect is just kind of whatever, because if they do something during your main or during their main turn, then you lose the protection that you had. So for your EVA 01 specifically, and that's like, I'd rather just not attack unless it's going for game. So I think the secondary condition here is going to be very, very niche in its application. And then we have Asuka, which at the start of step, select one of your nerve spirits, place 2 cores from your trash that are not a soul core onto it. So this is another one that I really do like for the red-green deck. And like, we have seen so many times that the red-green deck just wants to ramp a bunch of stuff and power up its guys. And this is an insane Nexus for that deck in particular, because again, we do need more things that say Asuka Nexus, so checks that box. And we do want something that says like, hey, how do we get more draw out of EVA 02? And spoiler, draw a card, one of your EVA 02 spirits destroys one of your opponent's spirits via comparing BP. They're all about confront. They're all about attacking. They're all about, it reminds me so much of like Gigano Rex days of just red-green beatdown, and I'm so excited. So that's where it's like, again, both understanding, and this is where I think they did a really great job, and maybe it's just because like we know the sets are going to be smaller, et cetera, whatever, but both of these Nexus have a okay role in the starter deck where, again, from an onboarding perspective, new players learning the game, it gives you the reductions, it tells you about, you know, the 2 and 3 different color decks that you want to be running. I think overall this will be a very great learning tool for Battle Spirit Saga. But then also they gave us 2 Nexus that are just like so obviously good, or could be good, in 2 vastly different archetypes that it's just like, okay, well, I see what they're doing here. So even if you don't want to play the EVA 01 deck, you probably are going to want to buy the starter deck for these Nexus, which just based on how many Nexus there are in the deck already, these will probably be like 2 of, so you're still going to want to buy 2 starter decks anyways to finish your X-Squares and all that stuff, and hey, buy more promo packs, right? But I think both these are just a beautiful design standpoint and also lend themselves very well to what the other decks are going to be doing. So kind of that said, like, hey, where does EVA 02 sit in this? This is the one where it's like, okay, I do not love either of these cards because of where they want to be with red-green, right? So I won't dig into too much of it, but we've already seen a lot of the red-green spoilers that, you know, we want to have our reduction symbols. And in that red-green deck, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of room for purple. So you're basically always paying 3 for this. Now, to be fair, during your attack step, draw a card when a battle with one of your nerve spirit ends. This is a very strong effect, I will admit. This is something that if you can find room for it, and if you can find a way to bring it all together, I think it is going to be crazy strong. And again, with the Asuka Nexus, we're able to just take it from level 1 to level 2 very easily because of the effect. So again, in the starter deck, I think it's very good. And then hopefully in the Unit 2 and 8 deck, you're going to have enough stuff that you don't care paying the 3 for it because you've already ramped enough. So this is one that like really doesn't fit in the deck, and it might not even fit in the 0208 archetype. But we'll have to wait and see how strong the second effect is, because there is a lot of other draw stuff available in the archetype already. So we'll have to see if this, makes a cut. And then the unit type S, when the spirit attacks, select one of your opponent's spirits with 4k fewer BP or destroy it. It costs 5 cores. We already have way better cards that we could be doing at 6 and 7. Again, for the starter deck, for the reductions, for learning about different colors and their themes and their effects, I think both of these are beautifully designed. They are very obvious, hey, this is what red wants to be doing cards. And again, is a great introduction point to Battle Spirit Saga, but does likely fall a little bit flat when we think about the overall red-green archetype that we're getting in the full collab booster. So we'll have to wait and see. Again, I think in terms of like ceiling, even if it does feel bad having to pay, like if you pay 1 for this plus Asuka Nexus, like it's obviously busted. You have the protection, so you're always drawing the extra cards. You get to fill up your hand, be very aggressive, hide behind an ice shield, turn everything sideways, draw a bunch, right? Like that's fine. However, it does lend itself to if we're only paying or getting the red reductions and we're paying 3 for this compared to some of the other spirits we've already seen spoiled, and we're not like that far into spoilers, right? For CVO1, I think that's where it can end up falling a little flat. But time will tell. Drawing cards is obviously very, very good in Battle Spirit Saga, but I have to wait to really pass judgment on this one until we see what the full spoilers look like and if we're okay paying 3 for this in the end. And then the last two is, we got some magic cards that we got to introduce magic cards, right? We got to talk about Burst, but both of these do fall a little flat and remind us of some other cards from the set. But overall, both of these, I'm just not even going to be worth talking about. Like, both in EVA only tournaments and outside of like EVA plus main set stuff, we will have better options for both of these. This is just not where we want to be. Again, great for the starter decks, great because it has the 3 different color reductions on each of these to help players learn about how the different costs might come into play and like paying cores off spirits and all that, but the effects just overall aren't that great. So with that, it brings us to, okay, what does this really look like from a key spirit perspective? And that's where we saw EVA 01 Spear of Cassius, which, yes, I did cover a little bit in my other video, and I'm just throwing here at the end in case you didn't see the other recap or review video so far, even in spoilers, but this card is going to slap. Thanks to the starter deck, because we're getting these extra EVA 01 spirits that we want to play early and then can hang on to later, we are able to just build this combo attacking monster with the level 3 refresh the spirit when EVA 01 spirit card is discarded from your hand based off the second effect. So this guy is going to be coming across for 10k, constantly stripping cores, attacking, restanding, discarding cards, getting extra effects, maybe playing additional magic. I love the EVA 01 archetype so far and think it is off to a very, very good start. So with that out of the way, what do you think about the first collab starter deck for Battle Spirit Saga? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I am very excited to get my hands on this in like, what, a month and a half, basically, as when these will finally be out. So with that, my friends, stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.